We got Phil Longo out at Wisconsin. He is no longer there. Zach, I think that this didn't shock people that it happened. I think the bigger shock was the timing of it happening. I was listening to a lot of Wisconsin guys talking about this, and they were just more shocked that it happened with 2 games left in the season. And honestly, I give credit to Luke Fickell. I think that
Yeah.
this was a bold move. I think this is something that you had to do if you wanted the fan base to really think that you were serious about getting to a bowl game and making it happen. I did kind of question if maybe it was more Braedyn Locke than Phil Longo, but even if it was, I went back to it. Phil Longo never chose to change his backup quarterback. He went an entire season with Braedyn Locke as his backup, and he decided to keep him as his backup for the next year, which, I mean, look at what Oregon did. Oregon didn't like their backup situation, so they went out and got 2 quarterbacks out of the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Why didn't Phil Longo do that? Why didn't Wisconsin do that? If you don't believe in Braedyn Locke, why aren't you doing that? You know what I'm saying? What do you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, the fact is it feels like he's regressed this season. Last year, now is limited stats, but 5 touchdowns to 1 pick. This year, 9 touchdowns to 9 picks. So like I don't think Braedyn Locke has improved. Now, granted, there's more of a volume there, but he just has not been competent. And if you knew that going into this season, you didn't just need one quarterback, you needed multiple quarterbacks to bring in. You brought in Tyler Van Dyke, who I'm
Mm-hmm.
still skeptical if that would have fixed the situation, the way he looked the first couple games. Now, I know he probably needed it some time, but just the way he looked, I was like, there was no guarantee that this was going to work. I think the timing, I like the timing for a couple reasons. One, yes, you want to make a bowl game. But what's really important is that you get first shot at the offensive coordinator of your choice. And so you're kind of getting ahead of everybody. So that's one thought. I think the second thing is that what Wisconsin proved over the last few weeks is that they never needed to move from their bread and butter. They just needed to enhance it. Phil Longo was an air raid guy. They were moving more to power. If you're moving more and you're shifting philosophies, you don't keep the guy who specializes in the thing that is actually not good for you. You got to move on. And so they got through the toughest stretch of their games. They played Penn State, they played Oregon. They kept it close with Oregon, not because of their offense, but because of their defense. And because I think honestly, Oregon was a bit fatigued from all the travel. And good for them. They kept it close. They look like they've improved. But the reality is they need to move more to being a power team with good to great playmakers on the outside and a great playmaker at quarterback. They think they have their quarterback in the future, and the freshman they recruited. Now go get the guy who's going to make your running game which is what Wisconsin football has always been about. Get those big nasties up front, get your running backs, and go to work. And now upgrade your quarterback and wide receiver position. Go get an offensive coordinator that's going to make that happen.
Yeah, I think there were positives to what Phil Longo brought. I think that the offensive line played very well, at least pass blocking wise. I think there was some left to be desired run blocking wise, but I think that the offensive line pass blocking was very good. And I think that was one of the reasons why Braedyn Locke was able to have success this season, is because he did have a lot of clean pockets and the ability to throw from them. So I do give him credit there, but you know, it's really really tough because do I think it was more Phil Longo or do I think it was more Braedyn Locke? At the end of the day, I honestly think it was more Braedyn Locke because you look at what Phil the hand that Phil Longo was dealt. It was, and please understand, I'm not disagreeing with the firing here. I think the firing was the right decision with
Yeah.
everything else that was going on. I'm just saying that like Phil Longo was dealt a very difficult hand to where his very first year, Braylon Allen hardly plays. He's injured. Tanner Mordecai is in and out of the lineup all
Yeah.
year. He's injured. And then you come back the next year. Ches Malusi, he's away from the team. And for whatever reason, he's injured. I forget exactly why that happened, whether he was injured or whether he just couldn't be there anymore. And then Tyler Van Dyke is out, 3rd game of the year. Now, the offense didn't exactly look great before that, but it didn't look great after that. either. It looked even worse because you have Braedyn Locke in there. So, I think Phil Longo had enough of a track record for me to believe that he would have got it fixed eventually if he had the right players. But at the end of the day, like, that's also a part of your job as offensive coordinator, right? Is player
Yeah.
personnel. And that's what I'm saying with, like, if you knew Braedyn Locke wasn't good enough for you, you should have got somebody else. And so that's why I'm saying that I do agree with it. But I do think it's unfortunate because I would have liked to see what Phil Longo could have done with a fully powerful quarterback and running back together all season long.
Yeah. I I think maybe could I maybe nuance that a little bit too?
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
you're bringing it out. There are some firings where it's just gross incompetence, right? Alex Grinch, I feel like is a really good. He's an easy mark, but like he just was not good at his job, and you saw that everywhere he went. He was not a good defensive coordinator. I think Phil Longo is a good offensive coordinator, but I think philosophically it wasn't a great fit. And it was only going to be a great fit if you had the right personnel, and that was going to take a while. And so even with I think you're right. He was dealt a really bad hand, and I think that only magnified the situation a bit more. But I think philosophically, I think this is more of a philosophical shift for Wisconsin than it is a Phil Longo's a bad coach. I don't think that's the case at all.
No, I agree. I don't think Phil Longo is a bad coach. I think that Phil Longo has had a long enough track record for you to give him credit and say that he is a good coach and he can do the right thing. I just think at the end of the day, this is a situation that didn't work out for him. It didn't work out for Luke Fickell. And I hear you, John, in the chat. He says Fickell could have pushed for a new QB. Why isn't it his fault? You could have. And John is saying Phil Longo scapegoat. I think you have a point there,
Yeah.
John. I think that a lot of these situations where the offensive coordinator gets fired, it is kind of a scapegoat situation. We always talk about it. You get one firing of your coordinators, and then after that, it's like, okay, you just can't hire guys to come in. And so this next hire for Luke Fickell is crucial. Luke
Yep.
Fickell definitely could have, said, hey, you need to get a different backup quarterback. But I think that Luke Fickell is one of those guys where he kind of plays hands off and he lets his coordinators take care of business and do what they're supposed to do. And unfortunately for Luke Fickell in this one, I think he probably gambled and let Phil Longo do it, and it just wasn't the right choice.
Which I think, I've given Luke Fickell a lot of uh I've criticized him quite a bit. And the reason why I commend him for this move is it was a bold move that he made. Like it wasn't just, well, I'm just going to let things keep going as they're like if he could have made Phil Longo the scapegoat at the end of this season. He didn't. He waited till after almost beating the number 1 team in the country. And it was like, okay, yeah, this is not working. We need to cut bait. We need to figure something out. And so, yes, it is. In some ways, it's a scapegoat move. Like Fickle has not done well the past 2 years, and that is obvious. But I give him credit for doing this now and not waiting to see, oh, are we going to make a bowl game? Are we not? If we don't make a bowl game, then I've got to fire someone. He's like, no, I'm putting my coaching career on the line here because if this really backfires, we're probably going to miss a bowl and we're going to be bad next year. So like he's taking a big risk here.
Is that the most important thing for the season is make a bowl?
No.
I mean, at this point, is that the most important thing? At the
Uh
beginning of the year, it definitely wasn't. At the beginning of the year, you
yeah, it
wanted to be
was
a
8, 9 wins.
8-9 win team, but
The so I maybe I think a bowl game's important for continuity for sure. But the problem is with, who knows what's going to happen with transfer portal and NIL and all that stuff. I think what's more important is figuring out who you want to be next year.
mhm.
Like if you lose the next 2 games, but you figure out your identity and who you're going to be a year from like next September, and you know that going into next season, that's more important than making a bowl game at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I think the streak is something that Wisconsin fans hang on to. So I think you make valid points for like the reasonable thought process of building a team, but I think from the fans' perspective, like
Yep.
they really want to keep that bull streak going.
Yeah.
And if you don't keep it going, it's like the same thing with Michigan State. Like at some point, Michigan State is not going to make the NCAA tournament in basketball. Whether that's Tom, like it's better if it's Tom Izzo that doesn't make it, because if the next coach comes in and he doesn't make it, it's gonna be fire and brimstone on him, right?
Yeah.
So. All right, that's all we're going to say about Phil Longo tonight. I'm actually going to get together with Rajiv. He is the Wisconsin affiliate of the College Huddle, and we are going to talk about this situation and maybe talk a little bit about, maybe some future prospects of who they might hire, what they might be looking for to hire. I'm going to do a video with him tomorrow night, and then I will post that. So just be on the lookout for a video tomorrow night about Phil Longo, Wisconsin, all those things. It might just be me and Rajiv. Zach might join us too. I'm not sure. I haven't asked him about it yet, so we'll figure it out. Zach, you don't have to answer right now, but send me a text.
We're doing a video with Rajiv. Awesome.
If you can make it, sure.